This is Coder Radio, episode 257 for May 19th, 2017. Everyone, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Scale Your Code. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Why me? My name is Chris, and joining us every single week, sharpening his wood walking stick. Why, yes, it's Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike! No, I can't accept this. I took steps. The reason why we weren't here on Monday is I hired a hit team to come in and assassinate Jar Jar Binks. I wanted to give time for the body to be buried, for the story to fall off the news, and then start the show. How is this possible?
Misa's so sad. Assassin killed himself.
Actually, it's kind of worked out that we ended up recording on a Friday instead of Monday because we got stuff to talk about from Build. We've got stuff to talk about from Google I.O.
Yeah.
We've got projects you and I are working on to talk about. It's good stuff, dude.
Honestly, I think we should always record on Friday.
No, shut your mouth.
Yeah, I do. Because you know what? Mondays suck. I'm distracted by entertaining the children of Naboo.
Yeah, that's true. And that is a big job.
Really, when you orphan half a planet.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big job. And we all know it takes a village.
Oh, hell dog. You know, I had an interesting visit earlier in the week. I think we'll talk about.
Oh, really? That's just a little tease.
Related to the dog.
That's all I get. That's all I get.
All you get.
I've had a very interesting week. You know those weeks when you launch new products?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, I've had one of those weeks. So I want to talk about that with you in a little bit. I noticed we've got some stuff in here about one of our go-to topics, hybrid development, and also some big news for fans of Kotlin.
If you like Russian programming languages, today is your day.
Oh man, I can't believe you're even going that route. I know. Oh, God. And we're trying to get these guys to. We're trying to get IntelliJ.
They're never going to buy an ad.
IntelliJ. Let me tell you about IntelliJ by JetBrains. You see, I could do it, dude. I could do it.
No way.
Okay, maybe not. You're right. Okay, we'll make fun of him.
We could probably get a Visual Studio Code ad first.
Yeah, you're probably right. I could just go down in front of Redmond and just hold a sign out there, please sponsor my podcast. I'll go away. And they'd probably do it.
Very true.
You wouldn't believe some of the guys getting sponsorship these days. All right, let's talk about hybrid today, progressive tomorrow. What do you say?
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about hybrid development, native development. Noted Apple fanboy Chris Fisher is all in on native.
Oh wow. I can't even with that right now. It's
been pent up for a week and a half now. So, and I've been talking about hybrid. We talk a lot about Ionic. We talked about Xamarin and why you should never do that. We talked about React.js and why you should never do that. React Native and why that's a buzzword. See, I'm just getting them all out right up front. But the future is the progressive web app, and here's why. It lives on the server. In fact, it's funny. As soon as I got back to New Jersey, I immediately had a code signing shit show on my hand.
Whoa. Okay. I want to hear about that. Can you break all this down? Okay.
I can break it down. So real quick, a progressive web app, just for folks who aren't familiar, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? It is a web application written in something like Angular 4. Don't ask about what they did to Angular 3. There is no Angular 3. We don't talk. It's like Windows 9. It's just not there. That lives on the server and changes its functionality and its layout based on the device, right? So let's take a real example. Let's say you're running an Android device that is either Google Polymer or Angular 4 progressive web app. You might actually be able to tie into some native-esque controls for Google Maps. Obviously, you have a GPS on the phone where you don't have a GPS on your, let's say, Chris's golden MacBook, for example.
God damn, dude.
I'm just going for it.
All I do not, for the record, have a golden MacBook.
The guy next to me has a MacBook that looks like C-3PO's younger nephew.
Yeah, it does look like, it's not quite as nice as C-3PO, though. He's got more shine.
It seems like the designer on that was just like getting ridden really hard by Johnny Ive. Like Johnny Ive was like, mister, we need to get something. I can't do a British accent. Just kind of giving him a hard time. Like,
that was really bad.
We're going to get lots of mail. I can already feel it. On a
that was rough, dude. That
wasn't very good. I apologize for that. We're going to get so anyway, he's sitting there and Johnny Ive is like, so I need a gold color. And he's like, you know what? Whips out his Star Wars lunchbox and says, C-3PO.
Perfect.
Anyway, now the advantage here is that the progressive web app runs on the server and does not have to be code-signed by Apple. Let's talk a hypothetical here, Chris. Can we do that?
Okay.
Let's say you are a company or, the executive at a company. You hired another company to build you an iOS app.
Okay.
They urged you to take a maintenance contract and a support contract. They offered to cut the price because you complained about price. You didn't do it because you felt like you were being taken for a ride.
Yeah, when you're telling me this right now, I'm already thinking, if it's truly me, I'm thinking, I'm not buying this guy's support contract.
No one buys them.
And then when he lowers the price, it's just because he's trying to make a cream off the top profit. Like, this guy you know what? I got to tell you, even though I knew where you were going, I was still like, I don't think I'd pay.
Right. No one ever really does. Right. So, we don't do iOS that much anymore. But in the past, when it was predominantly most of my business, these kind of situations that I'm about to describe, it happen all the time. So you say no. A year later, your certificates expire or something happens or you need to change something on your MDM.
Yeah, of course, that would be how it goes.
And now you are screwed because now you're being charged development rates. And let's be honest, the vendor who wanted to say the support contract isn't super thrilled about having a fire drill, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the, oh my God, you need to do 10 hours or 12 hours of dev here, or, dev in quotes.
We all have seen that famous poster, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part.
Right, exactly. And it's like, well, you could have paid like a couple $100 a month to avoid this, but you decided that you would rather pay more now.
Yeah.
But also cause a problem for everybody because maybe we don't have the resources to do this right now. Right?
Let me introduce you to all of America. Right.
So if you had done a progressive web app, you would not necessarily have this problem because you wouldn't be code signing. Now, having said that, I want to defend native apps a little bit. They still make sense for a lot of things. Things are like video intensive, graphics intensive. But if you are a medium to small company that thinks you're going to like hire someone to do a native app, like on a fixed bid particularly, and then like totally screw them on the contract and then not sign a maintenance contract and expect like support, you're in a really bad place, right? Mm-hmm. Like the urge to rake you over the coals is, it's like Tiffany Albert in her latest video. I can't.
So if it's truly me, my response would be I would want something built in a way that would be easily maintainable by any developer I picked up.
Well, what you would want, right? So there's two things going on here. One, do you even want to manage an MDM in native mobile applications?
No, of course not.
Right. So, but let's say that you do.
Okay. Because all right.
Let's stipulate that.
All right. I can play that role.
Then you have made the classic technical fallacy in terms of technical purchasing of only looking at the sticker price for the initial purchase.
Yeah, which is actually super common.
Right? And thinking you can just like screw the vendor who built it because you don't want to pay maintenance contracts. This used to happen with old Linux systems.
Oh, it happens. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I used to know a guy who ran a SharePoint shop that whenever nobody signed a maintenance contract, he would tell them he quadrupled his rates if they called him back.
Wow.
Just because they had no choice. And that would be a way to force them to sign the contract. This is neither here nor there, but if you are outsourcing your work and you do not sign a maintenance contract, you are putting yourself in a position to, unless the vendor likes you or you've been fair to the vendor, especially if you've not been fair to the vendor, they're going to be very tempted to screw you.
Yeah, right? I would look at it as if in that situation to the vendor, you potentially look like a future high paying customer. Because they know they know you're hooked on. Here's the thing: they're going to be hooked on the good sauce. If it's truly helping their business, they're going to be hooked on the good sauce. They're going to be back. They're going to need that sauce fixed.
Yeah, see, I've never seen that actually be true. I've seen it more be true that the types of customers who don't want to think long term about their product or project also like rake you over the coals on the fixed bid contract, and you probably lost money on them or broke even. So it's more like, can I recoup some of my loss, and how much can I make this cost?
Okay.
Yeah. Although I'm also a bastard, so. So anyway, do progressive web apps, and people can't do this to you.
It's sound. It's interesting. This reflects a conversation I've been having off microphone with several folks who work at companies that are helping other companies decide how they should write their applications for Linux.
Yeah. It's the same thing, right? If you pick something super specified, you're really in a bad position if you ever have a problem. And to be fair, right? I totally understand the temptation to not sign long-term contracts, right? I never sign them. Like I'm being a kind of a jerk about this, but you can't sell me a long-term contract, right? Salesforce wanted to sell me an annual contract, and I just laughed at them.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So what I look at though is the realities. Everything seems to me right now better it seems like a buyer's market when it comes to software, because it seems like every major component is getting broken down in a way that isolates it and makes it modular and makes it possible for one person to create something and another person to pick it up. Like I look at one of the things that you spend a lot of time and effort on these days, Docker.
Right.
To me, Docker is the great commoditizer in some senses. Do you kind of follow my logic there?
Yeah, Docker like totally avoids vendor lock-in, right? Like if I sell someone a Docker implementation, they can go down the road to my competitor in a week, and I have no way to lock them in. But I don't want to lock them in.
And one step further than that, that's what we need to talk about. But one step further than that, in the past, it would be a complete solution. Like I would come in and I would sell you the consultation on the migration from your old system. I would spec the hardware. I would set up and build the hardware. I would configure the operating systems. I would configure the applications. I would move the data. The application was just the application. All of the stuff it required was part of a huge package. And now it's getting sliced up into individual portable layers to the point where you can't sell the whole package. You can't sell lock-in. You have to be able to sell modularity. You have to sell vendor neutrality in a sense.
Well, isn't that what we're seeing all over the place? Like how many new implementations are being done of like SharePoint, right? I mean, I hate to beat up on SharePoint, but it's like the quintessential lock-in product. I look at folks who are running on AWS, and one of the big things is, can we do a Docker on AWS? Because holy crap, we really don't want to be tied to like S3 specifically or to any of the AWS specific features, because Amazon could theoretically decide they want to make money, right, and change their price tomorrow. I'm just saying, like, Jeff Bezos could get like a bad cup of coffee.
That's just good because I don't know outside of Washington. I didn't know if outside of Washington it's like a common thing that people don't realize that Amazon like basically doesn't make money, and they just run at a loss. Like that's known here in Washington because they're an Amazon. Amazon is based out of here, and people grouse about it all the time and gripe, but. Yeah. Well,
I don't know how common knowledge that is, but it's a fact, right?
So here's my point though, is in the past, what always made sense to me is I would build these really long-term relationships, because the advantage I had is if I set it all up, I would try to do the best. I would do the best job I possibly could. I would build it using the best industry standard practices. But I knew at the end of the day, I had all of the esoteric domain knowledge. And that made me super crazy valuable, because it wasn't just the application implementation, it was the whole effing infrastructure. And I don't feel like I could get away with that anymore. That wouldn't be my shtick anymore. I wouldn't be able to make money at that. And it is a totally different sort of dynamic in a sense. And so that's why when you talk about going more and more into this space, about delivering things in containers, to me, you're sort of forfeiting the same domain knowledge, the same sort of domain benefit that Buccaneer would have had if you had gone in there and you had spec'd the application for them, created the application, set up the back-end infrastructure, and published it to the App Store for them, and then did updates. You have a history, essentially, when you land a good one, you could have a 5-year client there.
So the problem is, I see what's happening. The problem is you are assigning a change that's happened on the side of like clients and how they buy things to a technology change. It's not a technology change.
Okay.
It's that project managers simply got smarter. And just, so my entire sales funnel, no one wants us to maintain. There's only one who is interested in us maintaining, and they have a really good reason for that. But everybody else wants us to literally write a document and walk away.
So they figured it out, is what you're saying.
Well, because they know, I mean, if you look at the profit margins of consulting business, unless maintaining really means continuous dev, maintenance is where you make all your money, right? You're getting hammered on dev. I mean, look at, it's funny. I was on Facebook looking at some pictures of relatives, like there was a birthday party. And I'm part of this Facebook group for people who own like development shops. And there's a bunch of these guys who own, like I used to, right, mobile focused development shops. And they are paying their developers $75 an hour and charging $80.
Oh, man.
There is no margin. That's been totally commoditized, right?
There's negative margin there.
The only way they make money is if they sell like $1,000 a month maintenance contract. Because that's, except for when Apple changes something, that's basically profit, right?
Right.
So if you think, you have to like understand that these things don't exist in vacuums, right? As enterprises hire people out of agencies and say, oh, well, we need to get as much value as possible. Don't sign the maintenance contract. Don't do it natively, right? Do it in web technologies, and we will have, we'll have just one of our developers who's responsible for the outside, quote unquote, outside services, right? Mm. And that's where we're going now. This has been a cycle. I mean, from the 90s, right? Insourcing, outsourcing.
Yeah.
Back and forth. And right now it's very strongly in favor of insourcing. So when you say it's a buyer's market, it's a buyer's market because most of these people who are big enough, let's say 200 employees, have developers on staff.
Right.
So they can
or
just
at least one, right? I mean, not
right. At least one who's like somewhat, they don't care how busy or not busy it is. They just do it. So what they're doing is they're trying to avoid those kind of agreements. Now, this has happened before, right? And what happened last time is that there was a paradigm shift and everybody needed to, go mobile. That was the last big shift, right? Everybody needs to rewrite everything to go mobile.
Yeah.
So that was a huge boon for the outsourcing shops.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Even me.
Yeah. Right. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that project managers on average now understand that, the smart ones understand that these things need to be maintained long-term, particularly mobile apps, but it is more beneficial to do it hybrid or progressive and have a JavaScript developer on staff. And the dumb ones just know that the smart ones don't sign maintenance contracts. And because they don't want to look stupid, they don't sign maintenance contracts, but they have no one to do. And then they get, demolished later. But that's business.
Yeah, it is. Huh.
So, this message brought to you by Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell.
Now, how does Docker Compose fit into all of this in your world?
So again, this is like doing a service for the client, right? Docker Compose is just a way to manage Docker containers for your application. You can go to buccaneer.io. By the way, the newly redesigned buccaneer.io.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, it's pretty. It's pretty.
Jeez, man. What, travel isn't enough for you?
Who sleeps anymore?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I could sleep, but I just have sleep apnea anyway, so what's the point, right?
Yeah, me and Jim, we're going across country. Oh. You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Well, he's got some free time.
He's actually working as a UPS man, which I think we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
But, we decided to redesign the website. So yeah, it's a great way to basically organize, and bootstrap your application using Docker. Your app might have multiple containers, right? So a Rails app has a web container that's Rails, a database container that's probably MySQL or Postgres.
Yeah.
You might have a Redis container, all that good stuff. You set it up, you run it with one file, one command on the command line, and you're good to go. If you want to learn more, to go to buccaneer.io or my YouTube channel, and there is a handy dandy guide.
Dude, I got to say, you are, I think you are rocking the hair. You are rocking the hair. I really like that. Man, this site looks unbelievable, dude. This looks so great. This looks really good. Nice work.
Yeah, Miss Yates has an eye for design.
Damn. Yeah, of course. Sure. Yeah. It's a good team you've assembled there. It's a really good team. Yeah, wow.
We call ourselves the Avengers. It's weird.
Buccaneer.io. Go check it out. So I got to compose myself because when I saw this, I felt like you were trolling me. Swift is like Kotlin.
I did not write this article. I want to start right here. Just want to say that. Okay. Swift is a lot like Kotlin in syntax, right? And you can go ahead, the link's in the show notes, and take a look. The author makes a great point, and I
can I interrupt you just for a moment? And I would not normally do this, except for I feel like at this point, you know me, and I would only do this if this was super important, right? I don't normally do this. I don't normally stop the show.
Do it.
So I have some software on my computer called Variety, and it is a background manager that gives you random backgrounds. If you're a Linux user, I highly recommend it because you can set things like, I want it to be a dark background, a certain resolution. I want it to have these aspects of it. You can blur it a little bit. And I have it set not to do anything dirty. I know no sexuality because this computer is on the air. And it just changed my background to two women on a couch grieving. And it's extremely distracting. I don't know if you have I got to send you a picture of this, Mike. I'm turning on the video feed, so look at your Skype there. I have this picture of two women crying. And
what the hell is wrong with you?
I don't know. This just showed up on as we're talking right now. This just changed on my background to these two women crying and grieving. I'm sorry, Mike. You know what? I'm going to tweet out a picture of it right now, so that way, if you're listening to the audio feed and you want to know what I'm talking about, I will tweet out a picture of it because it's pretty outrageous.
It's like the worst thing I've ever seen.
It is disturbing. It is very disturbing. It is not as disturbing though as Swift being compared to Kotlin. This drives me crazy. It really drives me crazy when we do this.
Okay, why does it drive you crazy? Let's hear it.
Well, so it's the tribalism that already begins to form. Of course, Kotlin isn't really anything like Swift. It's not a truly functional programming language like Swift is. Swift has pattern matching. It has recursive data structures. And now, not to slam on Kotlin. Kotlin is awesome. You could already, just because of the nature of Kotlin, you could already use it on Android. This is just now being. This is just a shift, which I don't want to get into it too far. But I hate this. I hate this. This thing that doesn't actually happen in real life. In real life, say I drove a Ford and you drove a Chevy.
I do drive a Chevy.
Okay, that's great. And I drive a Dodge. So I drive a Dodge and you drive a Chevy. In real life, it would not even be discussed. If you and I drove our cars, parked them next to each other, got out of the cars, we'd be saying hi, we'd be shaking hands. Our vehicles, their specs, and the brand would not even come up. But online, it turns into a huge fight where the Ford tribe and the Dodge tribe and the Chevy tribe all get together or all get in on a conversation and start talking about how the Dodge doesn't have this or the Chevy doesn't have this. And we get completely lost in the weeds doing this, completely lost, and completely get distracted from getting any actual work done. It's like the whole Mac OS versus Linux desktop debate.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, so there's a couple of things here, though, right? So there are some syntax similarities, which I get what the author's saying.
Okay, fair.
And I think that's just the way modern syntax is going for the sake of like less crap and boilerplate and wasting time. Major differences. One, neither is actually a functional programming language. Just want to say that, right? Swift is still OO. It's just like more protocol oriented in quotes. Kotlin is functional-esque. I would not consider Kotlin like an F# functional programming language or Scala, right? Scala is still pretty OO too. We're not in the land of Haskell here, is my point.
Yep.
Just saying, right? Like Kotlin, there's all kinds of weird crap you can do with Kotlin, but its normal place is in the JVM. That's why it works on Android, right? And now it's officially supported by Google. Swift compiles to, it's like Objective-C. It really does compile to native code, right? So that's a pretty major difference. For instance, theoretically, I mean, not right now, Swift needs some improvements, but theoretically, you could write a kernel in Swift if you wanted to. Let's say in a version or two. That seems insane to try to do in Kotlin because of its architecture, right? Because of the fact that it normally would be compiled and running on the JVM. Now, there is the weird thing where it can compile into JavaScript, but I don't know anybody who's doing that. And if you are, please tell me why. I don't think one language is better than the other. I've toyed with Kotlin. I find myself having to use Swift, not that frequently, right? Because most of the stuff I'm doing is non-native, and non-mobile.
No, you just mostly do it for Linux.
Actually, yes. I got to be honest with you. It is not bad for like a quick HTTP service, especially like internally. But I don't know. I mean, I think if I had a giant Android project come in, I might be very tempted to do it in Kotlin because I like Kotlin. I think there's a lot of time saving and a lot of, for lack of a better term, modernizations compared to Java. Although Java 9 is coming out and has a lot of this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Swift is, a crime against humanity.
We are probably going to hear a lot more about Swift next week.
Yes, because children, this is the conference season where this show goes to crap for 3 weeks.
I don't know. It's kind of fun as long as you're willing to just go with the flow.
You know what? When we get into the Google stuff more, I felt like this year is not ramped up to be a good year.
So let's go there here in a second. Okay. Do you have any closing thoughts? I mean, we also have the links here in the show notes if people want to go.
Just a recommendation. If you want to write Swift on Linux and you want to learn more about the latest of Linux news, check out linuxactionnews.com.
Whoa. Are you plugging for me? That is so nice, dude. That is so nice.
I'm getting better and better every week.
Yeah, linuxactionnews.com. You know what, Mike? You are the target audience. So I would love when you get time, I would love for you to listen because
I already did.
Oh, you did? Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought it was good. I liked it. I mean, I listened to it on the plane. I didn't have any video. I didn't even know if there was video.
Isn't Joe great, though?
I like Joe.
Yeah,
I got to be honest. I'm trying to find his home address.
Yeah. You got to travel a little bit to get there. But yeah, at linuxactionnews.com, a Monday morning show. And it's our take, Joe and my take, on what's going on in Linux and open source. Nice, tight show. I hope you get a chance to check it out and give me your feedback. Also, it's on Twitter at Linux Action News if you want to check that out too. Before we go any further, why don't I thank DigitalOcean? Hello, hi there.
What's that?
Excuse me, I got a little verklempt. I'm very excited because very high, very maximum, very reliable CPUs are coming to DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean.com. Go over there and use our promo code CoderDigital. You sign up, you apply that to your account, and you get a $10 credit. Now, DigitalOcean is a very easy to use and very intuitive way to spin up servers on demand in less than a minute. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code CoderDigital when you sign up, and you apply it to your account, you get a $10 credit. Now, the reason why I double down on that, double down on that, is because with that $5 rig, you could run it for 2 months for free with our promo code. And you get quite a bit of mileage out of you get a lot of kilometers out of a $5 rig. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and try them out. They have a very easy-to-use interface, simple, straightforward, an API that actually would be a great chance if you want to start messing around with really nice, easy-to-understand documented APIs. Be a great training exercise. It's also just super functional if you just want to get work done. That's how we use it. DigitalOcean's also got new features launching all the time, like very, very, very high-end CPUs. They have block storage you can attach to your machine. They have monitoring, and they have great tutorials and documentation. Look at this one here. How to port Python 2 to Python 3. Hey, that's pretty useful. Using SSL and Nginx, working with CentOS, how to monitor hosts and services on Ubuntu 16.04. They're always adding documentation. This one, the Python 2 to Python 3 stuff, 3 days old. How to configure BuildBot with SSL, 2 days old. New stuff landing all the time. Spin up a system and try it out or put it in production. Just go to DigitalOcean.com, use our promo code CoderDigital, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Okay, so the big elephant in the room this week is Google I/O. It went down earlier in this week.
I would say like the stuffed elephant in some little girl's bedroom, not really the big elephant.
Can I be honest with you? I was not just surprised. I was shocked at what a lack of a splash they made. And I'm not, that is not criticism. That is just an observation.
Right. So there's a crazy Mike theory, but let me do my crazy theory first.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I love it.
Over the last year or two, the big three, I mean, I guess we could throw Microsoft in there, but
who?
The big two. Microsoft, you know, those guys,
you mean the guys that make Azure? Those guys?
The older fellas.
Oh yeah, the ones that have the buses. Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Wow. Everybody's trying to sort of find the next thing, right? It was mobile.
It's bots. No, dude, now it's bots. It's bots now, dude.
It was going to be bots, right? And I was really excited about bots, and then #abandonware.
And now it's derp learning machine intelligence.
Yeah, now it's like voice assistants, and everybody's kicking themselves in the crotch to get better voice assistants. And you know what? I was using my Google Home all morning. It was not an awesome showing.
Can I just say something? I really, this is just a quick aside. I think what I realized about the Google Home, it took the Echo Show for me to realize it, but the Google Home is what the Echo Show should have been all along.
The Google Home is what the Echo Show should have been.
The GoogleOme should have been the Echo Show. I guess that's probably a better way to say it.
Right. So with the screen and
when Google released the Google Home, it's a straight up Me Too product. Just like in some ways, Android is a Me Too product.
Ooh.
And web search is also a Me Too product. Now, eventually, over time, the thing about Google is if you long bet on them, they generally work it into something that's pretty competitive. But wouldn't it have been amazing if the Google Home would have launched as what the Echo Show is today, with those cards that show up, because they've got the Now Feed cards. They've worked on this technology before.
So I'm actually a little more negative than you, I think, on the whole space. Listeners know I was very excited about it, but there hasn't been a business model or monetization strategy for smaller firms to capitalize on these platforms.
No, it's only to make Amazon money, and that's why.
Well, and not even like the big boys, right? Like you can, if you really, really hate yourself and like Domino's Pizza, you can go ahead and do that, right?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, so if you can create a skill, like if you use the Echo parlance, if you can create a skill that connects to a service that makes you money.
Yeah, but even then, that's like, it's a super 3-step process where like opening your phone and ordering a pizza is much easier.
Yeah, I see. So I have a Dot in this room. I have a Dot in my office. I have a Echo in my RV. And so I pretty much, anywhere I spend a lot of time, any room where I spend hours a day in, there is a Echo device. And I use it all the time. The reason why is I've integrated it with actual physical actions in my environment. And once you
purchase them,
once you go out and you get the smart plugs and you get the lights and all that kind of stuff, and you do all of that, it is extremely useful. So for example, in the RV, it controls 2 different sets of lighting. It controls our heater. So I use it for that all the time. I use it as a Bluetooth speaker as well. I also use it to hear the headlines as I'm getting dressed in the morning. And then when I get here in the studio, I use it to turn on all of the hardware in my office. And then when I get into the studio itself, so for me, it's very much an integrated part. In fact, I would consider it a massive step back for me if they discontinued the Echo. I think it just depends on what you end up using it for. If you use it to ask it questions or order stuff, you're never gonna get value out of it, because your phone can do that. And that's why it 100% doesn't matter at all that Apple hasn't shipped anything like this, because everybody that has an iPhone in their pocket, or everybody that has the Google Now or Google Assistant in their pocket, they already have access to this stuff in the most use cases for querying it. If you want to query it for movie times or you want to query it for weather, you're right. Just ask your phone. It's when you are integrating it into your home and it's operating things like your lights, or in my case, your lights and your heater, where you want something that's always in the same spot, it's always available, it's a known quantity that's physically plugged in, and you always can you can always shout to it. Where your phone, sometimes you have it in your pocket, sometimes you don't. But for the most part, if you're in the mood to look something up, you're also in the mood to go grab your phone to then go query Google Assistant or Siri.
All right, but like, okay, so a couple things there, right? One, I will grant you that like I could totally use an Alexa to buy stuff, right? Like my wife and I constantly forget to buy paper towels for the kitchen.
Just as an aside, I've actually never once used it to buy anything.
Really?
Never. I use it many times a day, and I have yet to buy anything from Amazon with it.
So you know, I'm a pretty heavy Google Home user, right? I have one at work and one at my home office. I had the realization this morning because I was in something of a how should we say this? Darth Maul. Yes, exactly. Let's say Darth Maul mood.
A Darth Maul tizzy.
Yeah, and like I'm sitting here like naming songs, and the guy next to me is like naming individual songs. I'm like, this is actually super annoying. We should just go back to making one big playlist, put it on shuffle, and leave it the hell alone. Right? It's sometimes it's fun, but this is going backwards, right? This is like changing the record every.
The way I do it is I have the Echo play a Spotify playlist.
No, that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, it could be in our case, it would be a Google Play playlist, but
Google Play.
Then the other problem is I have an iPhone. I have been traveling a lot, right? I did a ton of driving.
Yeah, you have.
And flying and all that kind of crap.
That's actually why we're recording on a Friday.
Yeah, that is why. Although we really should just record on Fridays. I'm going to keep nagging you about that. If I'm driving, let's say a Nissan Rogue across Carolina, and I say, hey, Google to my iPhone, sorry, should probably stop that. It will do nothing, right? So now I'm forced to use Siri. God damn it.
I love it. You triggered
it. I triggered it. So now I'm forced to use Siri.
No, what you do, right? What you do is you say, hey, Shlomo, open the Google app.
Is that really how that works? That's horrible.
The only problem is then it says you need to unlock your iPhone first. So then you put your thumb on the thing.
While driving 70 miles per hour down on I-95, let me like do a 3-step command to play. Yeah, no. It just all seems crazy. It all seems like there's these weird platform gates, these weird, like you always say, strategy taxes that make it crappy for me not to just use the ecosystem that is built into my phone.
Right. It's
or I could go buy an S8, right? That's my option.
Yeah. Oh boy, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but so GPS brutal. That works is so much better.
It's so brutal. It's so brutal. Yeah, it is an interesting time, and I have faith that Siri will improve. I actually, could you give me an example? I hate to be this guy because this is the not only do people hate us talking about this topic, but then the other thing they really, really, really hate is me defending Siri. But I'm gonna fucking do it anyways. What's so bad? Like it sets reminders, it sets things based on geolocation.
Okay. Very slow.
Okay. All right. Fine. All right. Good enough. All right. So Android O, let's just bust through some of this stuff so that way people's heads don't explode. Yeah. Google I/O also announced the beta of Android O. So now you don't have to get the preview. You can actually get a beta. Autofill is one of my features that I'm looking forward to the most. Yep. You have to be a Chrome user to really take advantage of it. Autofill will fill in logins. Smart text selection. It was a moment on stage where they used to say, we have on-device machine learning. And basically what it does is like it looks at words and sentences and tries to figure out it's trying to make Android highlighting more like iOS essentially. Then
okay, so I tried to look into this one.
Okay.
Is it really machine learning? I would love to hear from someone from Google or someone who's been involved in the alpha. Like, it doesn't feel like proper machine learning.
And is it happening in real time while I select text? Like it felt like we're just saying machine learning for everything now.
Right. I mean, not that and I think it's a great feature, and a lot of this stuff is nice because it's open to developers, which is also great. But I'm not sure I would qualify this as machine learning, but yeah.
What do you think of the picture-in-picture feature that they announced? So for those of you that didn't catch it, the feature essentially places a small video box on your Android quote-unquote desktop while other apps are open. So you can move it around. So it's like, say like you're watching Coder Radio on YouTube or Netflix, but probably Coder Radio. Or a Duo Chat. You could move it around on the screen while you're doing emails and browsing the web and looking at your Reddit porn.
It's just, wow. It's just like what YouTube on iPad does.
Well, all video. Anything that uses the video playback API on iOS. Which, see, this is where I'm curious. This will be a really interesting comparison. And this is why I do tend to hang on to at least any Android device that can run the modern OS, because how will this work compared to how it works on iOS? Since Apple has essentially one lane video can travel down, you end up with anything that travels down that video lane is now in picture-in-picture mode. But with Android, that's not necessarily the case. So I will be really interested to see if it really legitimately is, because what they called out was YouTube, Netflix, and DuoChat. That's 3 things. I mean, really interested to see in production if it's a lot. I would suspect it is. I would have to imagine it is, but they only said 3 things. So I'm curious to see how that picture-in-picture feature lands versus how it landed in iOS. One other things. This is probably the one that I think is most impactful for developers. Vitals, a new feature available for Play that helps developers spot issues with apps and potentially impact phone security. And they'll give you aggregate data across devices and things like that. I thought that was actually pretty nice and got a good round of clappuses in the audience. They also mentioned 2 billion monthly active devices. Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot of devices.
And instant apps for everybody.
Yes, open that API up. That is actually pretty cool. I don't know how widely adopted it will be, but I have a feeling, because it's not that terrible to implement, that a lot of folks are just going to go ahead and do it if they're, if they're so inclined to go native, right? I mean, how much do you care about this? I would love to hear from like hardcore Android users. Does this matter to you?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I'm really on. I want to see it. I imagine. What I pictured is like I'm on the web. I'm looking for information. Oh, I want to order something, and then their app launches, and all of a sudden I'm in their app to complete the process or something. And if in doing so, maybe I can use Android Pay instead of having to put my information in like an animal. Yeah, okay, maybe I could. I think it's useful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be interesting.
And then all of a sudden you get all the nice native animations and all the good looks and stuff like that. Anything else from I/O that jumped out at you? Treble.
Well, so there's
Project.
I thought Project Treble was interesting. It's yet another attempt at fixing the whole update fragmentation issue.
Right. Yeah. Round 3, I think we're on now.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised though, to be honest, because like in my work, the Google Play Services has mostly fixed it to the point where you just don't do things that cause problems, right?
Yeah, I think the real issue that Google is just waiting for is so remember how we just had WannaCry just go across?
Yeah.
That could happen to Android devices. Let's be honest, because the thing is, you can do things with at the Play level, but if you're still shipping a vulnerable kernel or some GNU utility that's out of date, you're still.
Okay, but at some point, isn't the device vendor responsible for not being a jackass?
Yeah, I mean, so just so people understand, Project Treble, not Tribble, not the trouble with tribbles, but Treble, like the reason it's like thirds, so Treble thirds. It's the third slice of the Android update stack. The first layer being the silicon manufacturers like Qualcomm,
right.
and then you have the OEMs like your HTCs or your Motorola's, and then you have the carriers. That's the whole 3 slices there. And so Treble is a reference to in threes, and this is the first slice. Now, maybe the implication there is that they're going to try to solve the other 2. I don't know, but I'll tell you what. I find this to be a third of a solution.
Well, it's a weird solution given that margins on Android devices for manufacturers are ridiculously thin, right? Carriers don't really give a crap what phone you buy from them anymore because it doesn't matter. So this solves a Google problem for Google. And I definitely get your point about security, but I don't know how I don't think this actually will solve that in every case.
Yeah. Because you're only getting the only thing you're isolating yourself from is the people in the middle, the OEMs. They're now isolated from having to reinvent the driver stack for the silicon for the next version of Android.
Right, that's what it seems like. It actually seems like a boon for the OEM, not necessarily the user. Now, if you're building some kind of weird Android device, like you're a startup and you're building something cool using maybe Android IoT, this is probably super helpful and super welcome to you.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it does matter a lot if you make the OEM's job easier. If you make HTC's job easier, they'll ship more updates. What Android's trying to get to here is they're trying to get more competitive with iOS, so that way when they ship awesome platform features, everybody gets to take advantage of it. You can have notification bubbles on your icons all day long, but it doesn't matter if no more than 2% of your users ever run that version of the operating system.
Right, and if the developers never implement an API for it.
Yeah, so their hope, I would imagine here is make the OEM's job easier. And then if the OEM's job is easier, they're more likely to push a new version of Android out to the carriers.
But this reminds me a lot about like Microsoft before they did Signature, encouraging OEMs to like destroy Windows before they shipped it. Right?
Well, because if you got to imagine, at the end of the day, their motivation is to sell new devices because that's what makes them money.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, these vendors are being squeezed, right? They're not making money on these handsets, really. Even Samsung, who makes the most money, granted they tried to blow a few people up, but they don't make that much per unit.
You know, just before we go on completely, and then we'll be all done with the Android stuff. When I read this post, you know, my first thought was, how the hell was this not a thing already? How did they not launch Android with this? Having a proper vendor interface is the only reason I mentioned that is Canonical got that right. Canonical has a proper vendor interface and they have a proper carrier interface. So they had the ability to update the core operating system and the core applications without affecting the carrier branding and without affecting the drivers from the OEM, and they could still allow them to ship updates to that. Like, how can a couple of hundred people at Canonical figure that out, and Google, after all of these years and all of the resources, with the complete master plan that they had to do this with all these different manufacturers, how could they not have thought of this sooner? Now I got to wait for Android O. Well, that's great news for Pixel users, but nobody else is getting this.
And that's our Google I/O coverage.
All right, scaleyourcode.com. Go to scaleyourcode.com and sign up for their low-flow mailing list. You know, 2 to 3 emails a month, but you get access to great interviews, really, really good technical stuff, how people solved major challenges and huge infrastructure scaling problems, I won't call them problems, cultural lessons learned. How about that? That's probably a good way to put it. And the tools they use to do their job. Scaleyourcode.com. Go learn from successful developers and get access to interviews, inside looks, and tutorials. I was digging through their archive because I've signed up, and I'll tell you one of the ones that jumped out at me recently, and I'm surprised I haven't talked about this. So this is Jeff. He's a teacher, a psychiatrist, a computer jockey, and a dad. And he helped found and find and set up a few things you may have heard of. He built data analytics engines on AWS, and he has a real awesome philosophy that I think makes the entire interview fascinating. Keep everything you build as simple as possible. You can see how he built Simple, an engine on AWS with Redshift, and learn from it, and learn the performance tricks and how to efficiently query data on Redshift. How does it all work? You can find out with this interview and many others at scaleyourcode.com. Just go to scaleyourcode.com, sign up for their low-flow mailing list. That's it. It's free. You get access to all the interviews. Scaleyourcode.com, and a big thank you to Scale Your Code for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Mr. Dominic, it's not all about I/O. It's not all I/O. Hello. There's build news, too. Xamarin has some news.
This should be quick and brutal. So Visual Studio for Mac 1.0. Okay, it's Xamarin Studio kind of redone.
Yeah.
What's interesting is they're moving away from Xamarin Studio, though. So this is the way you're going to do Xamarin development.
It's weird. It's every time. I don't know why. It's still weird to me every time I see Max up on stage at Build. Just weird.
It feels wrong. Next item, which I think is far more interesting, is the Xamarin Live Player, which allows you to work on Windows and build an iOS app in Xamarin to your device without a local Mac.
Yes, it's very cool.
Now, before you all get excited...
So does that mean like you buy one Mac, you put it on the LAN, and then everybody else can use this? Is that what that means?
No, you don't need to have the Mac on the LAN at all. There's no Mac. You do not need a Mac to use the Live Player, but you will eventually need a Mac, and let me tell you why. This is actually running it in like a view. It's almost like the Ionic View app to run Ionic apps without doing code signing. So there's a performance hit. This is not really like, you should not be doing development with this unless you can do a quick, Command R build just to, test a layout change, test something minor, whatever. But in terms of actual like quality control, you need to get a Mac and build it against the Mac.
Okay.
For deployment, you still need to build it off a Mac.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
So, and to be honest with you, having used tools like this before, it's almost never worth it unless you're really just doing some like layout tweaks or something really, really small. But having said that, I could understand if you're like a longtime Visual Studio user, and I mean Visual Studio.
That's what I was thinking.
Real Visual Studio Classic. And you just like, you're just doing some XAML files, right? And you don't want to be bothered. Great. Xamarin's not really my thing, so it's interesting. That is about it. Again, not, they had a bunch of Azure stuff. Great. Microsoft right now loves Linux, Mac, Docker, and some guy from down the street. So it's really kind of hard to narrow in, but I would say these were the two biggest things.
Yeah. So we have Visual Studio for Mac, which is sort of, so you're saying it's a rebranding in a sense? Well,
so if you watch the announcement, they do say, and I have played with this some, that it is it's not exactly a rebranding, right? It's a reworking.
It's like like the next version would have been, and they're just starting this off as Visual Studio.
It's like Xamarin Studio, whatever the next major release number would be. Plus now, because it's Microsoft, not Xamarin, as a separate entity, they care about things like ASP Core and ASP.NET and Azure, right? It has a bunch of stuff for Azure in there, and ASP development, where Xamarin Studio really did not support it super well.
So
it had it.
I gotta, Mike. I know that tone. You seem pretty underwhelmed by I/O and build.
Yeah, I like I said before, I'm not like, nothing really like got me jazzed into whip open Vim and start doing anything. Kind of a ho hum year, I think. I mean, we'll see what WWDC is, but
yeah. Did you hear the rumor at WWDC that there's going to be new MacBooks?
Of course.
I didn't believe it. I was thinking, no, Apple doesn't move that fast. And then some jackass tweeted me the picture of a brand new MacBook that he just bought, and I was like, well, that confirms it. They're going to totally launch new MacBooks.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Now let me tell you what happened. This is not my fault. I was sitting on my porch. I was sitting on my porch after the travel. And who pulls up to in front of my house but the UPS man?
Okay.
His name was Jim. And he says, Mike, I got something for you. I'm like, Jim, I didn't order this. He says, Mike,
no.
I've been reading your emails, and you did. So Jim and I took another excellent adventure to go see our.
Was he? Oh, I mean, he sounds like
a tall fellow.
He sounds like a Google employee at this point. I guess he maybe just had access to Google's servers. Is that what?
Well, I mean, I don't know. He said that there were some really dedicated professionals helping him out.
Yeah, and they just looked at the metadata of your emails.
So, as I cut open the box and I saw that it was a sealed MacBook 13-inch with the escape key, I said, Jim, I can't do this. He says, Mike, you are standing in front of two doors here. Conceal and Mac OS.
Wow.
And I said, Jim, yes, I've been watching my C-SPAN. I said, Jim, this might affect the outcome of this week's Coder Radio. He said, concealing is wrong. And so I opened it.
Yeah.
And began the Twitter storm.
Unless he's concealing a memo, then that's fine.
Oh,
that's fine. Yeah. So you got the 13-inch Escape.
Yes, I went with the Escape.
I gotta ask why. I mean, I don't with no judgment. I just gotta ask why.
All right. So remember that VPN gig that went away?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's back. And then I had a magical appearing quick iOS job. And then I wanted to write some Swift.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? I blacked out for a second. I didn't.
Yeah. What?
So so you have a 13-inch MacBook and I have a 15-inch MacBook at this point.
Oh, always whipping them out, Chris. Always worried about size.
You know, it's a pretty good machine. It's a pretty good. It's not an amazing machine. In fact, when I'm encoding video, I'm often a little disappointed. But when I am rendering video, I know it sounds like the same thing, but they're not. I'm very impressed. So it's a mixed bag for me so far. But I'm ready for the USB-C lifestyle. I'll tell you that.
I am. I mean, right now, ironically, I'm talking to you on a System 76 RayTel running GNOME Ubuntu. Ubuntu GNOME, for those of us who are fancy. But I have to say, it is a very nice machine. I actually think it's nicer than the 15-inch one.
What do you think draws you to it over the RayTel? Or over, say,
one's a
the
giant tower.
Or the Lemur.
Yeah, the Lemur. Well, one, I need macOS for certain things. I tried to go without it, but it was just...
Putting the OS aside.
I mean, that's the major thing, right?
Okay.
That is because I need it to build anything for iOS and kind of code signing.
Oh, okay. Like I thought maybe, okay.
A couple things hardware-wise versus the Lemur. Well, like I think the new Galago Pro would have a better shot against it because I can't open the Lemur on a plane easily unless I'm in, economy plus or business class. This I can. I like the USB-C, but that's not a huge deal for me. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to be like boring because I know that this is something that people get like flamed up about, but I needed to do code signing in Mac. I needed a Mac specific VPN software, and it was a cheap open box.
Yeah, I gotta say, if I was gonna get a machine just to run Mac OS, I think this would be the perfect machine because that's where they put a lot of their energy and effort into to make it a competitive product.
Now, I do want you to know though, the minute I broke the seal on it, I did see the tweet about the new MacBooks coming out in a week. I was like, of course.
Isn't that funny?
Every time.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because
it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
It's pretty funny though. It's pretty funny just to how that stuff happens, and it is also funny that once you start carrying around a machine that is this size and thinness, the other machines start to feel bulky and heavy that never felt bulky and heavy before.
Well, that's the biggest thing, right? So I was never a large laptop user. I was always a 13-inch guy, right? I was on the 13-inch original aluminum MacBook. Then I went to the MacBook Air and I melted it. I literally melted it. And then I was the 13-inch MacBook Pro guy forever. And a couple iMacs here and there. But I really, really hated the 15-inch MacBook Pro.
I have not had a problem with that escape key once. Not once.
No, it's not the escape key. It was just heavy. Like it felt unwieldy on my lap.
Okay.
I don't like the random dead space on the side, like the way the bezels are on the. I mean, we're getting into real like Marco Arment territory here, but
yeah, I follow you though.
Something like if I'm going to have a Mac, which having worked in GNOME for a while now, I kind of still prefer GNOME. But if I'm going to have a Mac, I think like I'm actually I almost bought the MacBook, the super little guy. The only reason I got this was open box and like it was better computer for literally less money. I don't know, right? I guess I think about the way I use it. One, I need Mac OS occasionally to sign something. For some reason, no one makes good Ubuntu VPN software that my customers will accept, which is very annoying. But that right there is kind of a deal breaker. I like the RayTel, and since I sit at work for 9 to 10 hours a day, I'm mostly on the RayTel.
Yeah, desktops are nice for when you're doing long durations of work.
Right, but when I'm on the road, small, light, and long-ass battery power kind of work. And occasionally I plug it into the monitor because like somebody's like, oh my God, can you do this MDM thing for us, right?
That is almost exactly my setup. All of our desktop machines, every computer in this room, all Linux. My main desk machine that has 2 monitors here at my office at the JB1 Studio, Linux. And then my portable machine right now is the MacBook Pro 2016.
Now, how are you, and the answer is no, they won't let me use OpenVPN. How are you, for the chat room, because they're using that's a whole nother topic. It's some sort of weird proprietary VPN software. How are you finding it performance-wise? Like one thing I've noticed using the 13-inch escape key, for the things that I do, like compiling stuff, I do not notice a significant loss from what I perceived on the 15-inch one, the 3000.
I would argue because the 15-inch one isn't all that incredibly. I didn't get the very, very high-end CPU, but I got the one next to it, and then I got the video card with 2 gigs of RAM because that's what I need the most. But I would tell you, I am disappointed in the raw CPU performance. And I wonder if that's because maybe it throttles or something like that. It's good. It's great. I mean, it really is great, but it's not get my job done significantly faster great. And so I already could see myself wanting to replace it in a couple of years, which I'm going to try to resist. But I could see myself wanting to because...
I mean, one thing is because I bought OpenBox and because I really did this on a budget, it is only an 8 gigabyte model. This is not a fast machine. But for a travel machine and for needing to log into this really obnoxious proprietary VPN, works fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
right. and to be honest with you,
if you need a Mac OS workstation.
Well, and also it would cost me like $200 to slip a GPU into the RAID tail here and be in good shape.
Yeah. Well, and eGPUs are getting a lot of traction on the Mac. I sort of fell into accidentally an entire community of enthusiasts that are testing out different external GPUs on MacBooks. There's a lot of momentum there.
I have been looking into it, but it is not a cheap solution.
No, because you got to get the box and then you got to get the GPU.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, I think for yours, yes, I think maybe that's something you should look at, but for mine, it's wasted. Yeah. Although I will say, iMovie is so much easier than OBS.
Oh, wow. Here's the thing, though. My closing thought on the external GPU is imagine now in 2 years, and when they got the price down, say you could drop $400 total, and you've got an absolute modern graphics system on that laptop.
Chris, I buy a laptop every 3 months.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I imagine this will be up for sale soon, so everybody stay tuned.
Check out my Etsy page.
Actually, I bet because you got the 13 open box, I bet this one lasts, right? Because it's a much more palatable cost.
And you know what? I have another hellish travel season coming up, and the ability to whip it out on my.
I'm sorry, what?
I see what you did there. But I meant the MacBook.
Oh, okay. USB-C, one day is going to make traveling. Imagine bringing like one charger cord that charges your phone and your tablet and your laptop or whatever. Like I'm such a USB. I just want USB-C to go everywhere for charging for cameras, everything.
Yeah, that's kind of like I realized that I could just buy and I have one, a USB-C to Lightning cable, and have like 2 of those and be good to go.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. All right, Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week?
Go to Buccaneer Tech on YouTube and buccaneer.io. I have lots of videos coming next week.
Oh, good. And go check out that new website, too. It looks incredible. Nice work. You can follow me on the Twitter. I am at Chris LAS, and the network at Jupiter Signal. At Jupiter Signal for news, episode releases, things like that. Things like, calendar changes. That's best at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Coderradio.reddit.com is where you can submit content links and things that you want us to talk about, things you want us to discuss. Also, you can give us your emails at jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. Go check out linuxactionnews.com. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you right back here next week.